and welcome to this week's show, and we are at Alcatraz for The Rock with Sean Connery and Nicolas Cage. Michael Bay, of course, in charge. So big bangs, big explosions, big everything. First time I saw this movie was at the cinema. I'm a Bond fan, so I'm a Connery fan, so I wanted to go and see whatever he was bringing out at the time, and to be fair, it was huge. It was great fun to watch. He's got lots of funny lines. He's got a nice hairpiece and very, very long hair, which is referred to as a grunge thing at the time, to which the hairdresser replies, "It's some sort of thing," which I thought was rather nice. It's got lots of action, and the action is derivative to the whole movie itself. It wouldn't work without it, that's very clear. If you took a lot of those action sequences out, the entire movie just wouldn't work from start to finish. And yet I also suspect that they've thrown the kitchen sink at the action sequences because maybe the plot needs a bit more to go on with, and the script needs a little something else, and they haven't really got time, which is why Dick Clement and Ian LaFrenne were, of course, brought in by Connery to, you know, perk up the language a little bit and give it a bit more humour than maybe it had. But on the action front, you have Kenny Bates is in charge of the action, and of course he's got a big back catalogue. Michael Bay, of course, he worked as stunt coordinator on Bad Boys. That's presumably how he got the gig on this. It's wall-to-wall stuff. I've had to do the very best I can with the edit because it's copyright stuff, so it's all a bit tricky. So I've used some stills, and I'll talk you through what's going on, and we'll try and highlight a few individuals. And it goes very much like this. So it's 1996, and it is The Rock. Huge movie at the time. Got some great moments. Early on, here's I can't identify this particular performer, but look at the positioning. Comes out of the gateway, and it's almost he's on a wire with a harness, and it'll have a pinch point on it, and it'll spin him round in the air. This particular sequence, of course, the rooftop. That's Womack, who's the head of the CIA in this particular movie. Mason takes offence to him because he was the one that put him in jail in the first place, and flings him over the top of the hotel on a cable, dangling in, I would say it's about a couple of 20 stories up, maybe. It's good height. And, of course, a good wire system there. Fred Lerner, the stuntman, a veteran of many years. The chase through the hotel is split into a number of bits and pieces. Michael Vendrell is doubling Connery. There he is. The stuntman over on the right-hand side we will spot a little later on as well. And they all get kicked down the stairs, running through the hotel. The fights are worked out in such a way that Connery comes racing into shot, and then the stuntman takes over. Cops in there. And his double, Nicolas Cage's double, is Webster Winery. Doubled him before, and doubles him on this picture in quite a bit. And then jumps into the car. Right, you out. Look after my Humvee. I have your ass. I'd never seen a Hummer in a movie before, so this is quite entertaining to see this. And the kind of sold it to a big audience. Sees the only car in the street. Obviously, it's a Ferrari. And he'll take that and goes off at 150 miles an hour. So the chase here, it's very well directed. The action scenes, the stunt people everywhere. There's a lot of that going on, crashing into it. I want you to take a look at the front of the Humvee as well, because there's no marks on this damn thing. There's stunt guys all over the place. There is cars being battered into left, right, and centre, and it is chaos. And evidently, of course, it's shot in San Francisco, so you have to have the obligatory jumps down the road. Hey, there we go. It's a wonderful place. You know, Bullet started all of that.
It's a wonderful place for a car chase. There's roadblocks all over the place, so the Humvee just crashes into or drives over a large proportion of vehicles, leaving wreckage everywhere. And then it gets up to the top of the hill as they start coming around here. And obviously, there's a vehicle thrown in for good measure. Now, there's no ramp here, or doesn't appear to be, but there's obviously it's airborne when it gets to this side. So I'm suspecting that there probably was another ramp just tucked out of the way. Of course, all the vehicles are getting a little bit of air as they come through that. Everybody in this, they're all ND drivers. They're all stunt drivers in all the vehicles. And this is a postal vehicle parked right up against the other side of this, and the Hummer comes crashing into it. Full contact, massive, great fireball erupts. The whole thing, is just utter madness. The car slides sideways and it just drives off normally. But that has brought down the telegraph pole, which is the reason for the car turnover. Henry Kinsey doing the cannon roll here. That's a cannon roll, firing that one over, and that goes off down the street. Going backwards, and the fair bit of, and then Steve Picerni is responsible for the pipe ramp there. That's the pipe roll as the car goes over the top. And the only piece of behind the scenes footage is this, and it's almost blink and you'll miss it. It's almost like a side thing. Watch the Hummer there in the foreground. The guy comes running through shot, and then there's the Hummer in the background. He then takes off, and into frame comes Henry, who will then fire the cannon there just as he gets in place and the car turns over. So in the story, they're driving along, they hit the telegraph pole and the car turns over. And so this guy's, focusing very clearly on Henry flying through the air and the car rolling about and bouncing about all over the place. Obviously, isn't aware that Steve Picerni is going to be coming at that pipe ramp at about 40 plus 50 miles an hour, and suddenly has to pan left very quickly, and just to catch the back end of him, because he arrives there. Look, there's the car. Even I nearly missed it there. That's him, and the first thing to hit the ground is the boot. Bang! Look at that. Or the trunk. It's an American car. It's not a boot. It's a trunk. And that's the only bit of action or behind the scenes action that I could find. There's lots of bits and pieces about miniatures and the underwater stuff, and lots of interviews with the director, and a little bit of stuff about Nicolas Cage, but I couldn't find any behind the scenes stuff, particularly about the stunts, which was a great shame. I wanted to use a great deal more of it, but that was the only shot that was available. And obviously, luckily, it's the big selling point in the car chase, so they've done their best to try and drag as much of that together. But and there's the car's abandoned now, you see. So that's it. They're waiting for the second unit director to shout cut, and the safety boys will go in and make sure that everything's fine. They were fine. These two guys have had huge amounts of experience turning cars over. Henry Kinsey was turning Jeeps over in the A-Team. He made the title sequence of the A-Team. That Jeep that flies through the air, goes upside down, very clearly wearing a helmet. You can see that in the opening sequence as well. But yeah, very, very impressive. And of course, Steve Picerni, well, Charlie Picerni, you see, it's the family thing. And they've got a great deal of experience as far as vehicles are concerned. The chase continues, and it's the Ferrari's turn. Turns into the garage, and he says that line, "Oh, why not?" and then flies through the window. Now, flying through the window is actually Steve Kelso doing the driving through there. Comes through the window, out the other side, bang, hits the floor. There's Stevie Kelso behind the wheel. And then there's a turn in the street here. Mr. Winnery is now back behind the wheel. So Steve Kelso brought in for that. It's a great chase. There's lots and lots of stuff going on. Huge amounts of action all over the place. And there in the middle of the road, of course, Sandy Gimple, who doing her old lady routine. Alan Brock is the stuntman we talked about earlier. Wheelchairs out of nowhere. Right, now inside Alcatraz. And the first guy we see is a huge explosion, and stuntman Danny Epper comes careering. There he is, careering from one side. Oh, I've slowed this down because it's such a fast clip, and again, with a great many of the gags in this movie, you blink and you miss them. So I've slowed this down, so at least we get a look at him coming out. You know, he remembered that it was through glass and on fire, but he couldn't remember what it was, so we had to go through it. Anyway, we found it, and this is him coming out. That's a better shot from there. Got the big explosion behind him coming through, pretty much horizontal. From the Epper family, of course, all connected. And that's a great big fireball, something nice to have on your CV, that one. So he comes hurtling out of there, crashing down towards the ground. And a lovely little roll out of shot behind some furniture. Nicely done, you. So that's that, and then it's full on. Then from that moment on, lots of gun. This is the mine scene. That's Michael Vendrell again. Mine shaft. That was the word I was looking for. Sets fire to the rope, and up here, stuntman Terry Jackson is the guy who is taking the falls for the actor. His legs on fire, set on fire by Connery. This is my favourite part at the end. This is stuntman William Washington. And it's done in a number of shots. It's done, obviously, the first shot with the actor, then him, and then there's a series of wire gags. That's not a free fall. That's a wire gag. Look at the positioning of his body. Then another wire gag, a fall in some shape or form. And then the ultimate landing on the post. What a sticky end he's come to as well, but it's a super gag. Another nice little gag here, and again they've used partly a stuntman who's thrown off the roof for the high part of the fall, and Manny Perry, I believe that is, and then there's a dummy for the final part. And again, it's only the positioning of the hands and the look of it, and it looks very much as though it isn't real. Michael Vendrell again, used a lot. This is stuntman Bob Brown who's coming out through the window, and this of course is that classic scene at the very end. The explosion goes off. Nicolas Cage's character is thrown through the air. I suspect he's on wires there as well. There's a wire attached. It could be, I mean, in the old days it would have been thrown through the air using an air ram, but I'm suspecting that he's on a wire possibly. It's a lovely fall, and eventually he will land in the water and be rescued by Connery's character. The credits, as they roll towards the end of the picture, a fair amount of individuals there. I put them here because I think it's important for you to see. Kenny Bates, Steve Picerni, as the assistant coordinator as well, the two main doubles, and then a list of many of those individuals, many of which you will know. Janet Brady was in there, Tony Epper, Andy Gill, Jack Gill, Mick Rogers, Danny Rogers. I mean, a whole bunch of individuals. And The Rock is one of those movies that does exactly what it says on the tin. It's an action adventure, and they do throw the kitchen sink at it, and they try and give as much budget to the action as possible. Michael Bay's that sort of character anyway. I mean, he's you're looking at these movies, and if it's you're looking for a really complicated script and an intricate backstory. You're not really going to get any. You are going to go in and sit down and be blown away by the amount of action that takes place in this thing. So I think it's massively important to go through, check out some of the names here. If you don't know who they are, do the IMDb thing, go and check that out. And it's worth looking at all of these individuals. They are very, very important to the success of the movie. And again, if you took the action out of the picture, you would be left with, well, not very much indeed, to be perfectly honest. So I hope you enjoyed that. Let's do it all again next time round.
So there we go. That's Connery in 1996 in The Rock. I hope you enjoyed that. I think that under the circumstances, it's a terrific film. And if you haven't watched it recently, go back and check it out. I think it's on Netflix. On Netflix? Go and check it out. It's well worth checking. Now then, next week, well, we're doing a bit of a Connery vibe. So I'm not just tying it in on the basis of that. But again, I saw this quite recently and really enjoyed it, and there's two movies and I'm going to try and dovetail the two together. So we're going to be taking a look at Highlander and the sequel, The Quickening. There can be only one. Not a great impression, I know, but just don't all write in and complain. So Highlander and The Quickening, Highlander 2. So we're going to be having a look at the doubling on that and some of the action sequences. There'll be a piece from Andy Armstrong, who was responsible for the second unit on Highlander, and I dare say we'll have some notes from our old friend Rocky Taylor, who doubled Connery in the second picture. So we'll go and do that. We'll regroup. Have a great week, by the way. If you've got anything planned, enjoy it. And we'll come all the way back here again on Friday for the YouTube show. Don't forget, there is the podcast on the Wednesday. And check out the Pod Dojo Network. They're the wonderful people who are responsible for the podcast. So go and check all of that out. And we'll do it again next week. Until then, bye for now.